Welcome everybody to the X Factor podcast. Today we are with a Friday morning right with you. We are coming off of one of the most interesting first rounds we have seen in history, and we're going to get right into it here this morning. And like a reminder to follow the TikTok, follow the Twitter, and subscribe for more content like this coming your way. Remember, the gaming channel is coming soon. Twitter, we just hit 1,000 followers on Twitter. So that is a big accomplishment for me because for the last couple of months I've been sitting around the 500 range, and the last couple of days it's just skyrocketed, and I am thankful for all that, and I'm just thankful for everybody that's supporting me through the journey I'm trying to give everyone. and like I said, I'm just blessed to have that, and a couple months ago I would have never thought it would be a dream to have at least 1,000. Doesn't really seem like it's that much, but when you're first getting into social media and all this, to me it's a big deal. and it's gonna be more wild, and then see how much we grow through here on the podcast, and how much we go through the TikTok, and how much we go through the Twitter. And it's just gonna be wild. And the TikTok is more gonna be of when the gaming channel stuff happens, and when my NFL predictions are on. Because if you all know the TikTok, I just post my prediction and score predictions. I don't really much put in my podcast stuff on there, which I probably should. But yeah, we're just getting right into it here. We had the NFL draft last night, the first round. An interesting first round, I might say. And right off, number one, Chicago Bears had the first pick, and it was obvious they were picking Caleb Williams. They missed on Patrick Mahomes in 2017, and Ryan Poles, the GM for the Bears, who picked Patrick Mahomes back in 2017, he came in and he's like, the Bears are not making the same mistake again. They're getting their Patrick Mahomes, and that's Caleb Williams. and the comparison is gonna be Patrick Mahomes, because Caleb Williams is just insane when it comes to throwing the football and knowing how to get the ball placement to a lot of guys. But the one thing, it's gonna be a lot of pressure on him, because the Bears have never had a quarterback that has thrown for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, which is, I think, the only team in NFL history to not have that yet, which is sad. They've never had a franchise quarterback. Now Caleb Williams comes into this spot where he needs to be this franchise guy, and he needs to lead this team to Super Bowls. But it's a lot of pressure. But I feel like he's been in pressure situations before. He's actually going to be around in the way they're building this defense up over there in Chicago, it's going to be way better defense than what USC was putting up with. If USC didn't have Caleb Williams, they would have never won a game, because of how much of them, how much defense is, like, they weren't playing defense over there in USC. And Chicago, if they get that defense rolling, and plus with how the offense is shaping up, it's going to be a scary year for Chicago. And I think Chicago, based off what they did in the first round, getting Romaduz at 9, which I'll get into in a little bit, this team is now playoff contenders. This team is up there with the 49ers and the Lions, with the best NFC team that could potentially make a run in the NFC. And the Bears have passed a lot of teams. I think they could be better than Green Bay. I think they could be better than Dallas. I think there's a potential that they could be better than the Philadelphia Eagles, which might be a stretch, but I'm giving this team a lot of praise because of how good Caleb Williams is and how much Romaduz is, plus getting Keenan, plus having DJ Moore with them and having an outstanding offense. Defense, on the other hand, it's going to be more of a, they were ranked second to last when it came to sacks last year. And so they need to figure out a pass rush, which they didn't pick up a pass rush at 9. Which to me is very shocking, because I thought Dallas Turner would have been around, and they would have picked. But a lot of stuff happened throughout that first round that made people question a lot of stuff which we'll get into, like I said, more into that later on. But with Caleb Williams being the first pick, we all knew it was happening. I believe that they're already playoff contenders, and it's gonna be a lot of pressure coming through. A lot of pressure hitting Chicago this season, because if they don't make a playoff run, it's not going to look good especially for Matt Eberflus, the head coach. So now we get into the second pick, the Washington Commanders. There's talks about who they're going to pick, Jaden Daniels or Drake May, and I feel like the last couple of days it's been more and more of Jaden Daniels. I feel like that is who just fits the system for them, and also the relationships with Dan Quinn that he gets. And Jaden Daniels, to me, just fits it. I feel like Dan Quinn, the talks that they've had with him, especially with the last couple of days, it just made it more seem that they were going to pick him. And he's going into another situation similar to Caleb Williams, where they haven't had a good quarterback in a while. They haven't had really much any of a good quarterback since the 90s. And they had RG3 that 1 year. They've had no much huge success since the 90s and the 80s. But hell, they haven't even won a playoff game in forever. They haven't had a winning record in 8 years. So a lot of big pressure coming in with the Commanders too, and even with Dan Quinn bringing in Tyler Biadasz and Dorrance Armstrong for huge money, I might add. Huge money. And that's going to be some pressure on them guys, too, forgetting how much they're getting paid and having to, help a team that hasn't been successful for the last couple of years fight with the Cowboys and the Eagles for the NFC East. And even though Dallas lost a lot of pieces in the offseason, I still think that Dallas could make a run in the NFC East. As of being a top team in the NFC, I don't think there's no chance. Unless they do something in this draft that really makes people look and be like, okay, well, maybe they got something going here. And I feel like the first round tonight really helped with that, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. And, the thing with Daniels, one thing the problem is durability. He's a smaller guy, but he's fast and quick. There's times, like with Caleb Williams and him, similarity there. They will try to be the Superman of the play, and if they see a guy wide down open, sometimes they won't throw to him. They'll try to, get the extra yards, get the first down, and risking their bodies and all that. And when I made the mock draft, I said Jaden Daniels had a little bit of a comparison to when I was looking at Malik Willis coming out of the draft. Malik Willis, there was a lot of, when he was playing in Liberty, that there was a lot of plays where a player would be down wide open, but he would just rather run it. Sometimes that's that case with Jaden Daniels, but Jaden Daniels, he's more explosive. He's a lot better when it comes to it, and I think I give more confidence for Jaden Daniels to do it. But either way, and I said in the mock draft, I don't even think Jaden Daniels or Drake May are the second best quarterback in this draft. And I thought that was Michael Penix who was the second best quarterback in this draft. And he ended up getting picked later on, which I'll get into. But with Jaden Daniels, he's in another situation like Caleb Williams where they haven't had much success, but they've had quarterback success, but they haven't had it in so long. It's like they're not used to having that success. So now they're going to be in big pressure. And plus, with Dan Quinn, he's been trying, he's trying to find his next Matt Ryan, and he could be seeing it with Jaden Daniels, but we also know how it ended with him in Atlanta. I don't think it'll be that way with Atlanta. I feel like he's come a long way since then, especially with Dallas. So it's gonna be very interesting seeing how the Commanders do this next season with Jaden Daniels. Now going into New England, this one is a little bit of a shaky one. It's not because of the player; it's because of the organization. They come in, they pick Drake May. He's 21. The thing is, he started 26 games in college. It's the really thing is he ready? That's one of the big things. Is he ready to go? They have Jacoby Brissett right there, who will most likely start the start of the year, but then eventually Drake May will fold in there. And I think the only way that Drake May does not have success with the Patriots is if the organization doesn't give him the weapons. They don't got many receivers. Well, they don't even have any good receivers, I might add. They don't have a guy that's gonna, change a game like a CeeDee Lamb or an AJ Brown or any of them. They don't have those type of receivers yet. They don't have much of a really good team. They're rebuilding. Like, they're starting from the ground up, and the coaching could be the one thing that really gets me too with Mayo. I don't know if I'm fully confident in him to, get this team to the next level, because he was a linebacker coach, and I'm not saying that he can't because he's a linebacker coach. And we've seen coaches that have gotten a spot from many places, and from being position coaches, they come and they just don't perform. And hell, they had Mike Vrabel sitting right there. They could have put, and they didn't put him there. So, like I said, the best thing when you want a rookie quarterback, my always solution is you always need to have an offensive-minded coach that's going to be there, or have a really good QB coach. And with Mayo, he's a defensive-minded guy. He was a linebacker coach. And like I said, the only way that Drake May is not going to succeed is if they don't give him the weapons that he needs. And they're going to, you can't have the team fail him, is pretty much what I'm trying to get with here. But he's still going to be a good player. If they can get a receiver that he can throw the deep ball down to, it'd be amazing. He loves throwing the ball deep. Hell, Minnesota would have been a perfect fit for him with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, with how much they liked going deep last year. But with New England, it's gonna be one of those trust the process type situations for them, and especially when it comes to Drake May. And we're gonna be sitting there waiting for his opportunity, and hopefully they don't make the same mistake as they did with Mac Jones. So, going over to number 4, we have Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State. He's one of the best receivers in the draft. Big thing with him, he's a guy that the Cardinals need. He's a guy that can come in there and replace DeAndre Hopkins when they had him a couple years ago. And now I feel like they have their number one guy for the future that's not in heading retirement situation things for him. And now Kyler can have a guy that he can trust to throw the ball to. And Kyler, we all know Kyler's a good runner. But not many people, have really thought, yes, he's small and he can run, but he can also throw that ball too. We've seen it a lot of times in his career where he has, with him and DeAndre Hopkins or him and Hollywood Brown, they've been able to make explosive plays because of Kyler getting down the field with them. And now with Marvin Harrison Jr., it's going to be much scary with him and Kyler going into this season. Now, number five is going to be where everything all shakes up. We looked into the Chargers. The Chargers have been a team, in with Jim Harbaugh. I got his name right this time. I didn't get him mixed up with John this time. He took the job with the Chargers in February. One of the things that they were looking for is to look into the trenches. But also they need receivers. They let go of 2 of their best receivers. And you would have thought sitting there, Malik Neighbors or Roman Duz would be sitting right there, yes, we pick them. They decided to go Joe Alt here, which I am very surprised with. I expected Joe Alt to go to the Titans. This one really came as shock to me. Because, with how much Justin Herbert needs receivers, you would have thought you would give your quarterback some weapons to throw to. And now they lost their running back, they lost their receivers, and they're going to build their offensive line, but you can't build anything if you don't have running backs, which I feel like the Chargers will go out and they will probably try to get Blake Corum because Jim Harbaugh already knows he's going to go Michigan heavy in this draft. We know it. A lot of his Michigan guys are coming into the draft, and I expect Blake Corum to be one of those guys that he picks. We all knew he wasn't going to go after J.J. McCarthy because he already has Herbert. Now, you go look at running back, you look at receiver. I could see them picking Roman Wilson right out of the second round. He's still on the board. I could see them picking him to be the potential number one receiver for them in the future. I could see them going after Blake Corum in the draft, which they're going to be the first team to snatch him up. If they see them on the board, they're going to pick him up. Doesn't matter what time of the draft it's going to be. If Harbaugh wants him, he's going to. He knows them well. They know him well. It's just going to be a perfect situation for everybody, and that's it. In that sense. And if they can get themselves a receiver and a running back and be comfortable into next year, then the Chargers are. Then I will be more supportive of this Joe Alt pick. But right now, I give you a little criticism. There's going to be some criticism to it because they need receivers badly. And they could have picked one of the best receivers in the draft, and they didn't. Now, whether or not that bites them later, who knows? If it bites them later, it's their fault. But you need to, so many questions of where they could have picked here. And Joe Alt, if Joe Alt's, he's going to be an amazing player for them. And the best thing, he's not going to, Herbert's not going to be falling on his ass 1,000 times a game because of Joe Alt. So, like I said, it's a good pick, but like I said, they just need receivers, and most likely they're going to go after receivers in this next few rounds and all that today. New York Giants, they come off, they teased, they were throwing some bluff around, they were, some teasing a J.J. McCarthy pick. And to me, if they would have picked J.J. McCarthy, it would have been a dumb situation anyway, because yes, they have Daniel Jones, who has struggled, but they're paying him $40 million a year, and I think they're going to Brian Daboll, what he did his first year with Daniel Jones, if he can get him back to what he had him in his first year, then they'll be ready to go. But one of the bigger things, they needed receiver badly. They haven't had really much of a number one guy receiver since Odell Beckham Jr. when they traded him fucking God knows when to the Browns. They needed that number one guy, and Malik Neighbors was their pick here, who is going to be a number one guy for this team. He's going to come in there and he's going to play some of the best football that we've seen in New York, especially when it comes to receiver. And there's going to be some pressure on him because you have to go up against Trayvon Diggs. You got to go up against Darius Slay. There's a lot of good secondaries when it comes to between Dallas and Philadelphia that you have to go up against, and you got to prove yourself to those guys. Now, Darius Slay, who's hitting older in age, and he's, I expect Malik Neighbors to get a couple on him. Now, the major one's going to be on Trayvon Diggs. I know he's coming off an ACL tear, so he might not be the same as he was his old self. But if Trayvon Diggs comes back and he's the same old Trayvon Diggs we've seen the last couple of years, man, it's going to be interesting to see how him and... There's going to be some fights between him and Neighbors, I guarantee it. And plus, the Giants have not had a 1,000-yard receiver since Odell Beckham Jr. in 2018. And one of the things is Daniel Jones. He needs to have a good year this year. He needs to come in, and he needs to show everyone why they shouldn't get rid of him. They need to show them why they picked him at number 6 in the 2019 draft. They need to show him why he can be the guy that can lead them to a championship. And in all of his years there, the only year that I expected him was that first year with Brian Daboll. And that was like a fucking wonderful year for them and like a magical year because no one expected them to be there. Now, they get this team rolling going into next year. I don't see them being a big threat, but I could see them having a little bit of an upgrade than what they had last year. So, and plus next year's quarterback class is not as strong as it is this year, so it could bite them. Who knows? Tennessee Titans at number 7. They were desperate for a offensive lineman. I thought they would have traded out on this pick and waited a little longer to get a tackle, but they came right out and they picked J.C. Latham, tackle out of Alabama. I like this pick. He's 6'6", 342 pounds. He's a fucking wall, and tackle was their biggest need. And entering, they could have with Latham. The thing is, will he be playing left or right? Titans allowed 29 of their 64 sacks last. The Titans left tackles allowed 29 of their 64 sacks last year. Latham has played 1,756 snaps on right tackle over there in Alabama. Now, if I'm looking at it and see how much left tackles put sacks on him last year, I'd put him over there on left tackle. He's strong, he's physical, and he's a guy that's going to be able to protect Will Levis coming into the future. But like I said, I like this pick. They needed a tackle, and they came out and they get one they didn't need to trade, which I thought they were going to. So, now coming to the shock of the draft here, the Atlanta Falcons, who just signed Kirk Cousins to a massive 4-year contract, they come out and they draft Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. And I said multiple times he's the second best quarterback in the draft, and I'm not changing my statement on that. I still believe it. I still believe he is the second best quarterback in this draft class. Until I see Jaden Daniels or Drake May outperform him, and in my opinion, Drake May could have, I would have, if we had New England, I thought Penix would have probably got drafted or should have been drafted in New England at this point. Because in my opinion, based off last year, Penix was better than Drake May, in my opinion. You can have the argument he was better than Jaden Daniels. But the Falcons, they just signed a quarterback, and the question is, why do they come out and sign or draft a 24-year-old coming right out of college? And the biggest thing is the development is what it is. They're going to do what Green Bay, and I feel like not many teams have done it, but a lot of teams are going to be doing it here soon. Dallas is slowly doing it with Trey Lance over there in Dallas. Not many people see it, but that's what they're doing. And now the Atlanta Falcons are going to be doing it too. They're coming in, and you're going to let Michael Penix sit behind Kirk Cousins for a couple years, which is, in my opinion, is amazing because if you look at some of the best passers in the NFL today, I'm putting Kirk Cousins up there. He's one of the best passers in the NFL. And there's no hesitation to that. It's facts. It's true. The man is so underrated, it's insane. And he's going to be a major part of why the Falcons make a run next year in the playoffs. Now they're going to let Penix sit there, and here's the problem with this. They're going to let him sit there, and by the time that they're done with Kurt, or by the time he's going to be ready, he could be sitting there until he's 28 years old, not starting yet. That is the problem with this whole thing. Michael Penix, I feel like he could sit a year, and then, once he hits 25, I'm like, he's ready to go. But you can't let him sit there until he's 26, 27, or 28, and just let him sit there. You picked him at 8 to have him have a feature. If you're going to let him sit there until he's 28, you're going to get 5 years out of him. Like a max 5 to maybe 8 years with him. I think, once he hits 36, 37, we're not seeing many quarterbacks go until mid-40s. And I don't think he's going to be one of those quarterbacks to go into his mid-40s. But, like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see what they go with here. And I believe that the first year or so, Kirk Cousins will be the guy, but after that, it's going to be very interesting to see where they go. Chicago Bears at number 9. I thought they should have traded this pick. They have 4 picks in the draft. And the fact that they're content with their 4 picks is concerning to me. They did go heavy in the free agency stuff, so maybe they got something going there for them. Chicago Bears, they come up and take it. They take Roman Dews, wide receiver out of Washington. In my opinion, he was second best. To toss up between him, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, you could have put him in any spot, and I would have been fine with either one. He's an amazing receiver, and he's gonna be another guy that Caleb Williams could throw deep to. Keenan Allen, he ain't washed. The, it doesn't matter what anyone says, he is not washed. He could still go. And then you have DJ Moore, who is hitting his prime of his career, and then now Romadu's in there at the trios of football here with the receivers. And I like it. But I think they still should have traded their pick to get some draft capital. But, since they did go heavy in the free agency pool, if they would have not gone heavy in free agency, I thought they would have traded this pick. But since they went heavy, it fits it a little bit more. And I already talked about Chicago, I think they're going to be playoff contenders. Now we hit Minnesota, who made a trade with the New York Jets. I don't know why they went up one just to get the quarterback that they could have waited for another pick. I don't know why they did that, but they went on and did it. Unless they were sitting there thinking that another team was gonna jump and trade with them, so they were trying to play it safe, which makes sense. They come out and they trade with the Jets and they get J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. J.J. to J.J. connection is what we're calling it here. And J.J. McCarthy, he is a good quarterback. He didn't really have to be the Superman of the team a lot when he was in Michigan. We're going to have to see him do that in Minnesota a lot. And there's no problem with that. There's no problem not having to be the Superman of the team. What he did in Michigan, you cannot take away from him. He was a national champion. He did the best that he could have given, and based off how that team was. Now he hits a Minnesota Vikings team that they're trying to keep Justin Jefferson. Now that's going to be a little bit of a stretch if they can. They need J.J. McCarthy needs to show that this is a guy that Jefferson can rely to for the next 10 years or how long he's going to stay with Minnesota. They need to prove that he could be a guy that could take this team to a Super Bowl. And with Kevin O'Connell sitting right there and Josh McCown sitting there to help mentor this kid, man, J.J. McCarthy has all the right pieces there and all the right mentors there for him to become a future star in the NFL. And I think it's going to be perfect. It's going to be perfect. He's going to develop well. Plus, having Sam Darnold there, I feel like Sam Darnold will start at least the preseason, and I don't know what they'll do after that. But it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. Now, we head into the next pick. The Jets, who, in my opinion, I thought they were taking Brock Bowers, but they go Alum Afashanu right out of Penn State. They take a tackle, which most likely he will be the guy to replace Tyron Smith when he leaves or whenever he decides to retire. I thought they were going right with Brock Bowers, but they're not. They're going to keep adding on to that O-line and have the potential of the O-line there. Great pick out of New York. Now, what they're going to do at tight end, I don't know, but it's going to be very interesting to see where they go with this. Denver Broncos with the 12th pick. I thought they were going to trade this over to Philadelphia. I thought Philadelphia was going to be heavy when it comes to this trading around in the draft. They didn't. And Denver, they go out and they pick Bo Nix. And I have no problem with this pick. I thought that he was another quarterback. And, people were saying Michael Penix and Bo Nix were going to go second-round picks. If you watched them last year, they're not second-round picks. They're first overall, or not first overall, but they're first-round picks. They're top 10 picks, in my opinion. They are top 10 picks. They have shown time and time again why they should be the first round, why they should be a quarterback of the future. They had more playing time because of the COVID year and all that bullcrap throughout the last couple years. So they had more playing time, and there's no really need to mentor that. There's no need to sit both of them back for long periods of time because they've played in college for so long that they can come right here and they can do whatever. And now Bo Nix, who my comparison before they even said anything was Bo Nix is the next, is going to be the next Drew Brees. The comparison is Drew Brees. And right when they picked him, that was who the Jeremiah's guy um, projection was. He was related him to Drew Brees, and Sean Payton has given himself the next Drew Brees of the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix, and it's gonna be very fun to watch. Um, and Bo Nix, he just looks like a Denver Bronco. Let's be real here. He just looks perfect in orange. Um, so Bo Nix right out of Oregon. And I feel like the best offensive situations is what's going to help him a lot. So, the Las Vegas Raiders, they needed a quarterback badly. All the good quarterbacks were already off the board. They should have at least tried to trade up to get one of them. They didn't, and they go with Brock Bowers, who, in my opinion, he fits of what a fucking Las Vegas Raider looks like. He fits the mold of what a 70s Raider would look like. And Brock Bowers, also with Michael Mayer sitting there at tight end, that's going to be a scary duo right there when it comes to tight ends. And now Aiden O'Connell is going to, or Gardner Minshew. I forgot they did sign Gardner Minshew. Now, between them two, it's going to be interesting to see how they go with them in the future with Brock Bowers. The New Orleans Saints, they go to Lisa Fawanga, right at Oregon State. They're needing a tackle with Ryan Ramczyk having knee issues and players, either leaving or the offensive line just deteriorating. They needed an offensive line, and they went and they got a tackle, and that's the best option they could have asked for. And this is the best year for tackles. So if there's teams that needed tackles or offensive guards or centers, this was the draft to get them. And I think the Saints have just had a perfect situation where they could get a tackle or whatever and be fine with the pick. So I like this pick. So the Indianapolis Colts, they decided to take the first defensive player off with Aliyah Latu, edge out of UCLA. The story of Latu is insane. He had to retire because of a neck issue, and then he's able to come back, and now he's picked 15th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. I like this pick. He's physical. He's strong. He's a guy that they can rely to when you need a sack on a third down or you need a game-ending sack. He's a guy that can get there. Latu, he's coming off a 13 sack season, adding 21 tackles for losses and 2 interceptions. That's insane for an edge rusher, especially 21 tackles for losses. He's going to be a threat when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts of what they're trying to do on defense. And it's going to be interesting. I thought they would have gone either receiver here, maybe even corner. But Alatu, he's going to make some pain come around over there. Seattle Seahawks, they come out and they take Byron Murphy out of Texas, which I think I said Clemson the other day. I meant to say Texas. I thought they were going to go tackle. I thought that they needed offensive linemen. Geno Smith, who's 32 or 33, like he's older. And then they just got Sam Howell, who got sacked a lot last year over there in Washington, and I thought they were going to go tackle, and they ended up going defensive tackle, and Byron Murphy, who is going to be a force to be reckoned with over there in Seattle now. But like I said, I thought they should have went tackle here, but either way you make of it, it's going to be a good pick regardless, and now they have the second round to look forward to on picking an offensive tackle or doing whatever they need to do. Going over to the Minnesota Vikings, who traded with Jacksonville. They go out and they take Dallas Turner. They lost Danielle Hunter in the offseason. They needed to get their next Danielle Hunter, and they go out and they get Dallas Turner from Alabama, one of the best defensive players in this draft, in my opinion. I thought he was going 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. He ends up waiting 9 picks to get his name called. They bid farewell to their 3 edge rushers last season. They signed Jonathan Gennard and Andrew Van Ginkel in the offseason. And they needed a guy that could take Danielle Hunter's spot, and they could be comfortable with it. I think Dallas Turner is a guy that they can be comfortable with and be like, this is the guy that can replace. He's the guy that can replace Danielle Hunter into the future. And the Vikings, they've had this. This was a good draft for them, in my opinion. They came out, they were going heavy. They made the first 2 trades of the draft, and they come out and they get the quarterback of the future and the defensive lineman of the future. And that's the same thing Houston did last year. They got the QB of the future and the defensive lineman for the future, and they made right here. And Minnesota, and now the NFC North is going to be the most interesting division next year. They have Green Bay, who's coming off. They upset against Dallas, and they almost upset the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs. You have Detroit, who had a Cinderella season last year. They went to the NFC Championship game. Well, they choked in the NFC Championship game. Now they're going to come back. They want revenge. You have Chicago, who are finally going to be good after so many years of sucking balls. And then now you got the Minnesota Vikings. And they have their QB of the future. They don't have to worry about getting a quarterback for another 10, 15 years. And then they got Dallas Turner in the draft. This NFC North is going to be the most competitive division next year, in my opinion. They're going to be going AWOL on every single week. It's going to be looking like, ooh, what's going to happen here? We're not going to sit here and say, oh, what's going to happen to this division or what's going to happen to this game. It's going to be what's going to happen in the NFC North this week, because it's going to be a movie about what's going to happen here in the NFC North. Now we go over to Cincinnati. I thought they were going Byron Murphy. He went early, and they take Amarius Mims right out of Georgia. They lost. They picked up Trent Brown in the offseason and Orlando Brown. Both guys are huge, and they take another huge guy here in Amarius Mims. They needed offensive linemen a couple years ago, and now they're slowly building it up now. One of the things, Joe Burrow, he's coming off a year where he was hurt. And they're coming off a year where, now 2 people, they are asking for trades. I could see them trading maybe T. Higgins for some draft capital and a receiver. Maybe I see them trading Hendrickson too. But if they want to be contenders, they need to trade those guys and get some draft capital and go heavy in this 2nd and 3rd round and 4th rounds. And this is going to be one of the more stronger 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds that we've seen in a while. I think if you look at that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, those are guys that could potentially start for their team next year because of how strong, in my opinion, that those next couple of rounds are going to be. And at Cincinnati, they want to make everyone believe next year they need to come out and they need to trade those 2 guys and get some draft capital and go right with the fences with them. Now, the Los Angeles Rams, I had this pick right. I thought they needed an edge rusher. I had them picking Jared Verse. They go out, they pick Jared Verse to become the replacement for Aaron Donald. He has big shoes to fill, but I believe that he will come in and he will do great things with them. And a very good pick coming out of Los Angeles. Pittsburgh, they need offensive linemen. They go out and they get Troy Fontanu from Washington. Like I said, they need offensive linemen. They got 2 quarterbacks that like to run around, especially in Justin Fields. And you don't want them to get injured or get banged up a lot. And I feel like them getting Troy out of Washington, he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to help them, especially with his big frame of 6'4", 317. So, looking at the Miami Dolphins, I thought they were going to trade. They didn't really have much draft picks coming out of the 1st round. I think their next pick was either in the 3rd or 4th round. I thought they were going to go at least trade for somebody. But they needed pass rush, and they come out and they take Chop Robinson, who is one of the best defensive players in this draft. Great pick. He's going to be a guy that in Miami that's going to wrecking a lot of quarterbacks. He's going to wreck a lot of quarterbacks' days and ruin them because of how much of a dominant force he was in Penn State. And, yeah, to me, it was a very good pick. Next up was the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought they were going to trade up to get this guy, but they ended up picking him at 22. Quinion Mitchell. He falls all the way down to 22 in the draft. To me, that's insane. They came out and they needed corner, and they got the best corner in the draft. You know, with Darius Slay hitting 33 and James Bradbury 30, they need corners, and, well, they finished 31st of both passing yards and touchdowns allowed last year. And he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to try to stop that. But when you have to go up against Jaden Daniels and Dak Prescott 2 times a year, that's going to be very hard for you. We look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who they traded from Minnesota, and they take Brian Thomas Jr. right out of LSU. My favorite thing from the Jaguars pick is they're showing Shad Khan and Tony Khan. And if you don't know who Tony Khan is for the NFL world, he is the owner of All Elite Wrestling, which is just the alternate version of what everyone grew up watching WWE. But AEW is it's the alternate side of, like, it's not what WWE is. They're just a separate company. They really base their stuff off wrestling, not just entertainment. And Tony Khan, the day before, he got pile drived by the EVPs of the company. So he was in a neck brace, which was funny as hell. I'm surprised that he's going, kayfabe with this, and it was very funny to go with it. And they take Brian Thomas Jr., who they lost Calvin Ridley in the offseason. They added Gabe Davis, and they Christian Kirk, and now they have Brian Thomas join this in roster, and it's gonna be good looking for Trevor Lawrence. Detroit or Dallas, who made the trade with Detroit. And Dallas, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was mad when I seen that they were trading, but now I like what they pulled here. Detroit, they gave Dallas a 3rd-round pick and a pick swap for the 1st round. Dallas gave them a 7th. And they come out and they take Terrion Arnold, who is a corner that they have desperately needed. Now, Detroit, they need to stop Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy. They got to stop mostly. Kyler Murray. They got quarterbacks that they need to stop next year. And I feel like Terrion Arnold, he's a guy that can tackle. He's a guy that can get in your face, and he's a guy that can play physical with you. And he's just what a Detroit Lion represents here, biting kneecaps off and all that. And I like this pick. So, going off with Green Bay, they take Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. They got rid of David Bakhtiari in the offseason. They needed a replacement over there at tackle. And Jordan Love, who needed offensive linemen to help to protect your quarterback of the future, they go out and get Jordan Morgan. And I like this pick. There's some needs that they still need to work on in the draft, but they covered off with a tackle from Arizona. Looking at Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they go and they take the monster Graham Barton right out of Duke. Ryan Jensen retired. With Baker Mayfield, his center when he was in Cleveland was Treader, and they now have their next center of the future right here, sitting with Graham Barton, who is a nasty force to be reckoned with when it comes to offensive linemen. He was one of the better ones. This is who I thought Dallas would have took, but him going to Tampa Bay, that offensive line is going to be looking good for him. Arizona, they go out and they take Darius Robinson out of Missouri. I was really kind of surprised at this pick. They're coming out. They need. I was pretty sure they were picking defense, but I don't know who defense they're going here. They pass rush was a priority though for the Cardinals. They had 33 sacks last season, which is their fewest since 2010. Robinson, he had 8 sacks last year in Missouri. And he's going to be a guy that can come in there and get sacks and help that stat line go much more higher in 2024. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't know what the Bills were doing, but they're stupid. They come out and they trade with their rivals, the Kansas City Chiefs. And now, why the hell would you do that, in my opinion? Why would you go out and trade against the team that you lose to every single year and then give them the opportunity to get more weapons? And then Kansas City, they take Xavier Worthy out of Texas, who ran a 4.21 and the 40. They're automatically winning the Super Bowl next year. Kansas City is automatically winning the Super Bowl. There's no yes or no's, ands or buts about it. They're going to win a Super Bowl. Whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. And it's crazy on how we're in that situation. Because one of the things is when you see a team who is winning like the Chiefs, you don't want to mess with them. You don't want to trade with them. And especially if you have to face them in the playoffs at some point, you don't want to mess with them at all. And they came out and they messed with him. And they traded with him. And now this is going to be on Buffalo. When Buffalo faces them and they see Xavier Worthy getting like 3 touchdowns on him, they'll be like, well, damn, maybe we shouldn't have traded with them. They're stupid in this. And they just pulled a stupid move. And that's another great saying I like to say. Bad organizations make bad decisions. And Buffalo, they already traded Stephon Diggs. They got rid of half of their fucking players, and they don't even look like they're going to be making the playoffs next year. But damn. Kansas City, they got a good pick, though. I will say that. The Dallas Cowboys were up at 29, and they take Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. Their biggest need was having offensive linemen. They did lose Tyron Smith and Tyler Biadasz for free agency. A lot of people thought that they were going to take Graham Barton. They ended up passing him. And I like this pick. How quickly can he make the transition to left tackle? We have Dallas. And, Dallas, this is one of the years that I have sat there and have said, damn, Dallas did something good. They came out. They traded with... They could have gotten Tyler Guyton at 24. They get him at 27. Plus getting a third round on top of that could lead up to a running back that Dallas needs in the third round. Dallas won this trade, in my opinion. Dallas, if they go right in the third round and they get a running back and he's going to be good for Dallas for the next couple of years. Dallas won the trade with them in Detroit. Like Detroit, they still got a good player, but you just can't pass up a third round pick and a tackle that you need, plus a potential running back that y'all need. They're cooking. When they said they needed to go all in the draft, and so far they didn't go all in free agency. I like what they're doing here. It gives me just a little bit of hope of the draft in the next couple of days. But I like this pick. And then you can keep Tyler Smith over there at guard. He will have to move over there to tackle. It should be good for everyone. Now the only big need is center, in my opinion. Center and potentially a right tackle. All right, Baltimore. They go out and they take Nate Wiggins, cornerback. I'm surprised that Cooper DeJean or Kool-Aid McKinstry have not gone off the board yet. Their corner depth goes even more deeper with having Marlon Humphrey there. Very good pick coming out of Baltimore. And then San Francisco, they come out and they take Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. The rumors with Brandon Ayuk, potentially getting traded are probably going to be much more sooner than later now, knowing that Brandon Ayuk could be out the door soon. Now that they've picked a receiver. and Ricky Pearsall, he's another guy that can fit into this 49ers offense. And one thing when it comes to the 49ers, they pick what needs to fit their system. And he's a guy that can fit their system, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Now we look into the final pick. The Buffalo Bills, they trade with the Carolina Panthers, so the Bills will start off day 2 of the NFL draft. And they go out and they take Panthers select Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina. They need a receiver. They got Dante Johnson out of Thielen, Jonathan Mingo at receiver. But then they also add Xavier Leggett to add to the 4-man group there. Adam Thielen, who is hitting 33. He's not going to be there for much longer. And Leggett, who ran a 4.39 in the 40. He is a guy that can come in there. And Bryce Young, they need to build this team around Bryce Young and have them, they need to have a good next year with Bryce Young. They have set him up for failure in his first year, and he needs to come out next year and show why he is not just another first overall bust. So, that is the first night of the NFL draft. I will review the whole draft after it's all done, and I'll give you my reviews and opinions on them. And we're slowly getting back in that NFL form where we could talk about it. Always a reminder to watch if you like professional wrestling. I cover that Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and then Fridays and Saturdays. So follow the Twitter, follow the TikTok. It'll be the description of all those will be. That should be showing up now at this point, but y'all stay blessed and have a great day.